And we all looked at each other and said, perfect.
Uh-huh.
And so that was decided at a city council meeting, and that's really aggravated the conservatives in town, especially the Sentinel, who had been insulting me particularly
Mm-hmm.
for months. And they started a really virulent campaign against the placement.
So is it the actual spot that bothered them so much? Like being downtown on that island? Or was that
Well,
just
they
something that,
didn't like it being, which everyone loves the town clock,
yeah.
you know,
Okay.
and they didn't like it being in a place where it was so visible.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the suggestions were in a corner by the library
Mm-hmm.
in an obscure place,
Yeah.
and another obscure place by the county building
Mm-hmm.
over on Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't want that. We wanted a place where people could gather,
Yeah.
because we saw it as a place where people would gather in protest to wars, which we saw
Mm-hmm.
more and more wars coming,
Yeah.
of course, who were prophets.
Uh-huh. Um, Last year when there was a question of whether Prop 9 or Prop 8 or not would pass, I was in a protest downtown, and that was the central meeting spot. So I think it's interesting that the legacy of like that traffic island is
Mhm.
continuing even to today.
Mhm.
Okay. Um,
And as I said earlier, you will notice that in the Sentinel to this day, they never publish a picture of the sculpture when they are doing an article on protests at the town clock.
yeah. Okay. When you created the sculpture in 1959, I was wondering what the political atmosphere was and what you personally were responding to. Kind of like, what made you feel like you needed to make this statue?
Well, the U.S. and Russia, or USSR, were going crazy. They were escalating their testing,
Mm-hmm.
and but enough information had been gathered by then to indicate that above ground testing was not good,
Yeah.
that the strontium 90 levels in the world were increasing exponentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when the military started proposing stratospheric testing,
Mm-hmm.
which of course would distribute radioactivity all around the world
Yeah.
very quickly, which would rain down eventually,
Mm-hmm.
since the half-life of these toxic elements is measured in thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially we saw it as the final curtain for mankind.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, both the USSR and the United States, under Edward Teller, were working on doomsday devices
Mm-hmm.
that would be buried in the earth and with enough energy to destroy the earth if disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
So the thinking here was that, okay, if you're going to destroy our country, you're going to get it anyway because we're going to destroy the world.
Yeah.
And both nations were thinking like that. I mean, it was bizarre. Young people today don't know how true it is
Yeah.
that we have learned to live with the bomb.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. We watched a lot of videos about like bomb shelters and stuff, and how for a lot of people it was just kind of a fact of life. And I had a teacher in high school that would talk about when he was little, learning to duck and cover underneath his desk and different things that were just part of his everyday routine that have nothing to do with my experience, you know?
Right.
So it's
And of course,
bizarre.
it was all bizarre. I could see the little kids hiding under their desk when they're about to be incinerated.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
come on.
What about in 1995? What was the group that was trying to get the monument put up? What were they responding to?
Peace activists, they were responding to a whole host of insane, needless wars that have happened since World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And Korea, Vietnam, Panama, I mean, endless little skirmishes that flexed the military might of this country.
Yeah.
And now, of course, the military has grown to be a ferocious animal.
Mm-hmm.
We are the world's police force.
Yeah.
And who really wants that?
Mm-hmm. There's a slide we also had in class, and it was showing the amount countries spend on their military.
Oh, yeah.
And every country in the world combined doesn't equal how much we spend. It was crazy. I didn't realize it was that much.
And we complain about the cost of health care,
I know, yeah.
schools,
And apparently we've got the money.
all these things. Yeah,
We
right.
just have to be prepared always.
So it's,
It was like 900 billion a year, wasn't it? It was some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
That just
It's
beyond
like,
my imagination.
is there really that much of a threat in the world that we need to be that militarized?
well, the biggest threat to the world is having military.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was a little interested in your experience with the Korean War, with being in the military. I was wondering if it contributed to you making the statue.
Only in a sense of seeing the absurdity of how the military operates,
Mm-hmm.
even in peaceful conditions.
Mm-hmm.
As a stateside soldier, the waste, the arbitrariness, the stupidity of most of the staff.
Mm-hmm.
I was inducted as a private, and I left the service after 2 years as a private,
Mm-hmm.
having been demoted several times and been a recipient of court-martial threats.
Mm-hmm. When were you drafted?
Pardon me,
What year were you drafted?
53.
Okay.
So I was in still when the Korean War ended.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I was looking at the different contributors that are on the plaque that's on the back, and I noticed that there's a woman named Joy Chase with little hearts next to her name.
So I see Joy.